You may or you may not know that I also present on another automotive YouTube channel. It's called House of Cars. It's for cars with engines. You probably wouldn't be interested in it. And recently on that channel I reviewed the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, and that's a car that both excited and exasperated me in equal measure, which pretty much sums up the Alfa Romeo brand for me. Let me explain. You see, the problem with Alfa Romeo is they have a tendency to lull you in with the way that cars looks, maybe with the great engines that they produce, only then for them to sort of let you down with the way that they actually drive, or the fact that they're not as modern or as well developed as their contemporaries. Now, I've never been a big subscriber to the fact that seems to be trumped out by I used to be on the TV popular motoring programme that you can't be a petrol head unless you've owned an Alfa Romeo. I have owned an Alfa Romeo and I've driven a lot more than that, but my Alfa Romeo was the shortest time that I've ever owned a car for, because it did exactly what I've just said. It lulled me in with the way it looked. It was a stunning looking car, but the way that it drove, well, it was just a bit meh. Now, my daughter goes to school locally here in Surrey, and I can guarantee that none of the parents that drop their kids off at school in the morning drive an Alfa Romeo. And that's because they don't really care about what Alfa keep trumping out in their marketing. They don't care about the fact that Alfa Romeo has won the Mille Miglia. They don't really give a toss about the fact that Enzo Ferrari was once a driver in their race team. What they want is a modern, reliable, dependable car that they can drop their kids off to school in. And that's why they all drive BMWs, Audis, Mercedes and Volvos. Which means that Alfa Romeo needs to tempt these type of people into their showrooms and away from their beloved BMWs, Audis and Mercedes. Because if they don't, it's well documented that Alfa Romeo won't survive. Now, we've been here before, because for the last 50 years that I've been on this planet, and for as long as that I've been reading car magazines, the number of times that I've picked up a copy of Autocar or Car or Performance Car or Fastlane, only to see on the cover that the new Alfa Romeo is the one that's here to save the company, only for it then to fade into obscurity. Well, let's just say there's been a few times of that. So it is with great hesitancy that I stand here today to introduce you to the new Alfa Romeo Junior, the car that's here to save Alfa Romeo. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new Alfa Romeo Junior, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I start on this week's road test review of Alfa Romeo's new Junior, it is of course the time where I would ask you to make sure that you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then once you've done that, make sure you've then pressed the little bell button down below, because that's the way you get notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you enjoy it, and I hope you do, give it a wee thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that we review on the channel, such as the new Alfa Romeo Junior, and of course on the AutoEV channel as a whole. Now, I'm maybe being a little bit harsh on Alfa Romeo. I am being a bit melodramatic, but in fairness, as I say, it's quite a common thing to have seen in the past across, sort of like the automotive media. Alfa's last chance, the car that's here to save Alfa, the last hope of the great Alfa Romeo, all that kind of stuff. And in fairness to them, they've had a fair crack at it before. There was, of course, the little Mito Super Mini. Alfa looked across at Mini and thought, oh, that's been quite successful. We could do that, and they launched the Mito. And it was a decent enough little car to drive, in fairness. They did the same with the Giulietta, a Golf-sized car that went up against the Golf, the Audi A3, the BMW 1 Series. They saw what those brands were doing there and thought, we want a slice of that action, let's go with that. And again, to drive, when it was launched, it wasn't a bad car. The problem was, however, Alfa Romeo used to be part of FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automotive, and they did have a habit of launching something and then just forgetting about it. They didn't really develop the product, they didn't really move the game on any further. They just came to the standard and stood still, whereas all the others kept continually developing, and that's why Alfa were always left behind. But of course Alfa Romeo are part of Stellantis Group now, and it's a well documented fact that the Stellantis Group management have said any brand that's not making money doesn't have a place in the portfolio. So Alfa need to succeed, and it's doing things the right way because it has seen the success that a lot of brands have had with SUVs, and that's pretty much what makes up Alfa Romeo's portfolio these days. Yes, it still has the Giulia saloon car, which, as I say, is not a bad car, but it's only got 2 models in its range. However, it's got the big D segment Stelvio, a car that drives very well indeed, and its smaller sister car, the Tonale. Well, of course, now they're turning their attention to the B segment crossover SUV market, and as you know, as I keep saying to you every time we review one of these cars, it's a massive sector of the market. 1 in 5 every new car sold today in Europe is a B segment crossover car. So naturally, it's a place where Alfa have looked at and gone, we could sell a lot of cars here. The other benefit that Alfa Romeo have is the fact that it is part of the Stellantis Group. It, of course, is sister brands, Peugeot, Vauxhall, Citroën, Fiat, Jeep. They've all launched cars in this sector, so there's a ready-made platform for them to copy and paste. But is the success of that copy and paste guaranteed with the Alfa Romeo badge on it? However, as always before we start, let's take a look at the main points about the Alfa Romeo Junior. So the Junior, Alfa's smallest family member, sits on the Stellantis Group eCMP platform that underpins a lot of the group's electric offerings across the multitude of brands. As with those other cars, the Junior comes with a 54 kilowatt-hour battery for a claimed WLTP range of up to 250 miles in its most efficient model. There are 3 models available, the standard Electrica and Speciale with the single front-mounted 156 brake horsepower motor, or the more focused performance variant Veloce with 280 horsepower. And prices start from just under £34,000 and go up to over £42,000 depending on which of those models you choose. Now that price bracket and this sector of the market space, as I said, is crammed with talent. And if this is just a copy and paste exercise that Alfa Romeo have they done a little bit more to tempt people away from not just those other brands that do small B segment crossovers, but the brands even from within the Stellantis Group to distinguish the Milanese brand from all the others? Well, the only way we're going to find that out is, of course, by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. Let me think now, what is it? Oh yeah, it's the AutoEV one. Right, as always, we have to start with the way that the car looks, especially as it's an Alfa Romeo. Now, over the years, Alfa have given us some pretty standout cars in the marketplace. They don't have to be beautiful, they just have to be eye-catching and stand apart. Take, for instance, things like, such as, I don't know, the Alfa 33, the 155, the limited Alfa SZ, if you like. They weren't exactly what you would call beautiful looking cars, but they really stood apart within sort of like their own market spaces with the competition at the time. But that's not to say Alfa haven't given us some absolute stunners over the years. The 156, the 159 saloons, of course the Duetto Spider, and of course the 8C Competizione, and absolutely hordes of others going way back, you know, from the 50s, the 60s and the 70s, such as the Montreal, the Giulia, the GTV. I could be here all day doing that. Where does the Junior sit? Well, I think it sits in the latter camp. I think this is a really good looking little car. In a market space that sometimes is maybe a little bit bland, this really stands out, and I think it's one of Alfa's best styling efforts to date. Oddly enough, when I first saw it in pictures, I was like, I'm not sure about certain bits of it. But when you see it out in sort of like the open air on its own, and you get a chance to go around it and look at details, it really all comes together for me. And it starts with this front end, this voluptuous front end that you get here, which is perhaps one of its most controversial areas. You get the sort of like the shield grille here. Now, I'm a bit confused about this, what I prefer, because if you go for the standard Electrica model, in other words, the base lead-in model, you get what they call the Legenda grille. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which has the Alfa Romeo script across it, which I really like. But then you move up to this Speciale and the Veloce, and you get what they call the Scudetto grille, which is a sort of abstract bit of the sort of like the Alfa badge with the serpent eating the man. And I love that as well. I can't make my mind up which one I prefer, whether it's the more heritage orientated Legenda grille, or whether it sounds like a pizza for Pizza Express, or this one, the Scudetto shield. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But I think we're off to a really good start, because I think that really is lovely. And I think Alfa are like bringing themselves up into a much more modern age by doing things like that. So well done, Alfa, that's excellent. Right, what else have we got? Well, we've got these really rather natty sort of like LED matrix headlights. Now these are an option, and I'll go on to options and stuff later, the LED matrix ones. But they're LEDs as standard, but the matrix bit I think is the option. And it looks like almost like the C shape, but it's not. What you then have underneath here is these bits of gloss black trim, which then just help frame the lights, and then the side of the shield. And then of course you've got your cooling down at the bottom here with this open grille. The one downside, maybe, but maybe this is me trying to sort of go backwards, I don't know. There's just a standard low set number plate. It doesn't have the offset number plate like certain cars, like my Alfa GT used to have, the sort of like the offset number plate. I don't know about that. It's a bit normal, but maybe that's what Alfa need. Again, answers on a postcard, please. And then of course you get the monochromatic new Alfa Romeo badge, which I'm a little bit sad to see isn't the coloured Alfa badge before, you know, the blue, the red, the white and the green in it. But fair enough, they're trying to sort of modernise things, but that's what you get mounted on the bonnet. But I do love the very sculpted, voluptuous bonnet that you get with the lines that come down and then just meet the top of that grille there. And there's a lot of nice sculpture work going on here, which is very similar to its larger SUVs like the Tonale and the Stelvio. So they are bringing in sort of like a lot of design cues from those cars into the smaller one, while still giving it its own style. So from the front end, very distinctive, very good looking, very Alfa. The blurring of lines between sort of like genres of cars, I think, is really amplified by the Junior, because I'm not going to call it an SUV. It is a crossover, in my opinion. Yes, it has the ubiquitous sort of like wheel arch extensions in the plastic that you think of an SUV, but I don't really think it has the look of an SUV at all. In fact, if you go for the Veloce, the range topping model, it sits on slightly lowered springs. It's different lower suspension, and that's only 25mm higher than a standard Giulietta hatchback. So in fairness, this is quite a sort of like a low small car. So I will stop short of calling it an SUV. It's a proper crossover, I think. Right, what do you have down the side of it? Well, as I say, you've got the ubiquitous black plastic wheel arch extension. 18-inch wheels are standard on the Aero and the Speciale. On the Electrica and the Speciale. It's the Aero wheels that come on the base Electrica, which I don't think look as nice. I quite like these Petali wheels, but they're nowhere near as nice as the gorgeous 20-inch four-leaf clover wheels you get on the Veloce model. They are stunning and just really make the car sit squat and purposeful. They're a stunning looking wheel on the car. Alfa have always done nice alloys, well, apart from the base model of this one, but you know, those wheels on that thing are just something else. You get the Speciale badging along obviously the top of the front wing. This car, it has to be said, is in the optional duotone paint finish, so it's got Brera red paint here, so the metallic red, and also the gloss black roof, which obviously ties in with the gloss black mirrors and the black badging and stuff, but that is a cost option. Now, here's something for you all to tell me about, because I'm pretty much convinced. You know about manufacturers, how they have the door handle on the front, but then the rear handle is in the rear C-pillar. You know how loads of people do that? I think Alfa Romeo were the first, and I think they did it with the 146, the 5-door hatchback, because the 145, which was the 3-door hatch, it had a handle, but I'm sure the 146 had its handle integrated into the rear pillar, the rear C-pillar, and I'm pretty sure Alfa were the first to do it. Let me know if I'm right with that, won't you? Let me know if I've got that correct in my head. They did it again on the 147, the 5-door 147, but I'm pretty sure Alfa were the first manufacturer that did that with the 146. Let me know. Like I said, you've got your integrated handle back there, so the rear door doesn't have the handle. This one obviously does. You've got the black plastic at the bottom with a lovely little strip of red through it. Obviously that's the body colour you get there. And then again, this bit of pillar here, this C-pillar down the back here, you've got a little bit of kind of graded texturing here with the serpent, the Alfa Romeo serpent there, and your charging flap here. But look at this line here. So you get a standard, very sort of like discreet little crease just comes along the door there. But then what it does is it becomes more prominent as it arcs up over the back wheel arch here. And then it just sort of like mirrors this line going up there and then down like that there. So it's quite voluptuous almost on this back hip. And I like that. I think that's really, really nice. And then this lovely, it's almost, and I hate using the word, coupe-like sort of like rear window, which has got the big spoiler at the top there, and then almost a different spoiler here, which is the rear lights, which I shall now show you. It was this rear end that I wasn't quite sure of when I saw it in pictures, but when you see it in the flesh, I saw it at Goodwood for the first time earlier in the summer. And I really, really liked it. I have to admit, you have to see the car in the flesh for it all to sort of like work and come together. And I really do like this rear end. There's a little bit of Alfa sud going on here, I think. Almost Maserati 3200 boomerang lights. Yeah, remember the 3200 with the boomerang lights? A little bit of that. So you get a sort, it's not really a light bar because it's not sectioned here, but you get the 3 section lights here that just fall over the edge here and just give it almost like a little bit of a cam tail at the back. And as I say, I really think that's quite distinctive. Of course, lots of people are doing just no badge at the back, they're just doing the script of it. But of course, Alfa Romeo has always had that sort of scripting anyway, which is nice, and it's the traditional heritage stuff done in black, which is really good. You get your little reversing camera just above that there. Obviously, there's a rear wiper, even though, as I say, it's got that more sloped rear end to it. High level brake lamp set right on the top of this roof spoiler in there. As I say, you've got these little blades at the side of it that just help the airflow around the car, which is good. A low set number plate into the bumper level, so the hatchback goes all the way down to bumper level, and then down at the bottom again you get your black bumper with the, sort of like the body colour running through that. So what do we think? Well, I think we're off to a really good start. As I say, Alfa, they've never really let us down in some respects when it comes to styling, whether or not they've been beautiful cars in the past or whether or not they've just been standout cars in the market space by being a bit different, like I say, like the SZ, the 155, cars like that. But I think what we've got here is a really good looking little crossover. So it's certainly got the appeal to drag you in to the showroom, and that's what I'm talking about before. That's where they've always been good at. They've always lulled you in with the way the cars look, only then maybe to let you down a wee bit with how they drive and stuff. But I think we're off to a good start with the Junior. Now, I've not mentioned about the fact that it used to be called Milano. I'm sure you know that by now. The car was originally supposed to be called the Milano, but because it's not built in Milan, it's actually built in Poland. The Italian government decided, obviously, that they can't call it the Milano. I have a sneaking suspicion that there was some very much kind of Italian sort of politics on the go there, and somebody from sort of like the Italian government must have found out that somebody from the top brass of Alfa Romeo were probably sleeping with the politician's wife, and so they decided to be pedantic about it and say, you can't call it Milano. So Alfa just went, all right then, we'll call it Junior instead. So that's why it's now called Junior. Anyway, forget all of that. Let me know what you think about how the car looks in the comment section down below. Do you like the way this looks? Are you an Alfisti? Does it tempt you, or are you absolutely horrified that they've done a car that looks like this? As always, I'm sure you will, let me know in the comment section down below. Right, practicality. Let's have a look and see what we've got. Okay. It's a 400 litre boot, okay, which is less than you get from its sibling from Peugeot, the E2008, and down on things such as the Kia EV3, a car that I tested the other week, but it is more than you get in the Jeep Avenger, another car that sits on this platform. So it's somewhere in the middle, so it's an okay size of boot. Okay, but as you can see here, what you have is a flat load entry in, but it seems quite shallow. That's because you've got a variable height boot floor, okay? So I can take that floor and slide it down a level, because otherwise I wouldn't get the suitcases in. Now, it does mean you've got a little bit of a drop there. You can take that out completely and give much more of a load area, if you like, much deeper load area if you like. However, you lose cable storage, because as you can see, there's cable underneath there. And you're going to say to me, well, hang on a minute, Brian, there's a frunk up at the front of cable storage, because I've seen that on everyone else's videos when they all did the studio shoots. Now, I wasn't invited to do those studio shoots, so I've got the car now, and I've been doing a bit of digging, and there was indeed many videos that said, oh, there's cable storage under the bonnet. There is, and it's an option. You've got to buy it as an accessory, and it's 325 quid. Come on, Alfa, don't be so stingy. £325 for a plastic tray to put your cables in. just put it on the car and stop being so stingy. Otherwise, that's where your cable has to live. And I'll prove it to you, there's nothing under the front, but it is an optional extra. Right, the space that you've got here is all right, in fairness. If you knock down, you got a standard 60/40 split rear seat. If you knock the seats down, it takes total capacity up to 1,250 litres, okay? But the standard boot, with the boot floor down into sort of like, we'll call it the middle setting rather than the lowest setting, you can get the, you can get 3 of the 4 suitcases in, okay? So you get your large suitcase, which can go upright because you've now got a bit of height in the floor there. We can put our medium suitcase in there like that, and then I can get one of the carry-ons down the side there quite easily, he says, if I just, there we go, down there like that. And you suppose you stick a jacket down there or a wee rucksack or something like that. So it's good for class, let's just call it that, yeah? I'm not going to criticise it at all. It's exactly as you'd probably want it. If you're looking at it from the point of view like a week shop, you know, you've got, you know, children's buggies or a golf club or a pram or a wheelchair, you're going to have enough space. There are worse cars in the class for it. There are worse cars that share this platform in terms of practicality. But all I'm saying is there are better ones as well. But as far as I'm concerned, the Alfa does a good average showing when it comes to the practicality of boot space. But yeah, just 325 quid for a plastic tray to put a cable in. Don't bother, just chuck it under the boot floor, it's fine. In case anybody doesn't believe me, there you are. No plastic tray for cables. That's where it goes. But I say you've got to pay extra to have it. Right, and it's a B segment crossover, so we've got to keep that in mind, okay? And this is the area where, not unlike the rest of the Stellantis group cars, it's maybe not quite so good in some respects. That's my driving position. Now I'm 5'8", okay? So I can just get behind myself. Oh, I've got to put that, forgot, got to put the head restraints up. So I can just get behind myself. The backs of the seats are sculpted out, okay? So I can get my knees in there, they're not touching the seat, but I can get my feet just underneath the seat, but then there's something underneath the driver's seat that my feet are touching there. So it's not massive in the back here now. I've been using this car this week. And my daughter and her friend, so 2 10-year-olds, it was my daughter's friend's birthday the other day, and we took her out for the day. So I took them out and I had the 2 of them in the back. So it was fine for them, in fairness. However, there were issues with it. And it's across all the cars in the Stellantis group that sit in this segment. And that's where you see things like the KEV3, the Volvo EX30, the Smart #1, they've got a little bit extra to offer because there's no storage back here for them, okay? So you do get pockets in the backs of the seats, okay? So you get pockets they could drop iPads into or all the rest of it. In fact, there's actually my daughter's little purse, actually. I better make sure that comes home with me, otherwise she'll lose that, be upset. But there's no storage, there's no centre armrest, so there's no bits, they couldn't put their water bottles anywhere, so they had to sit with their water bottles, you know, between their knees. There's connectivity, there's one USB-C port back here, and that's it, so there's only that. So one of them needed to charge their phone, because they both sit on their phones and they play a game jointly, I don't know why. But anyway, only one of them could charge the phone at a time. There's no door bins either at the side. So that's really disappointing, you know, again, considering that the car might be sort of like aimed at small or young families, for them not to be able to put, you know, water bottles in a place for, you know, 2 of them not to be able to charge. And just from the point of view, if you're a taller driver than me, that's quite, you know, that's quite close to me, that seat. So it is disappointing in the back of the car. That's what I'll say. I know it's a small car, but you look at what, as I say, Kia have done, you look at, you know, say Volvo and Smart, you know, where it is a little bit better in the back. I am a little bit disappointed with the back of the Alfa. But there we go. Headroom's fine. Headroom's okay. There's no panoramic roof in the car, so but headroom's okay for me. So I've got plenty enough headroom, as long as you remember just to put that head restraint up so it doesn't jab into your shoulder blades. And of course, my usual bugbear is the silly ISOFIX point. behind these zips that Stellantis do. Please, Stellantis, stop doing it. They're going to break. I can almost feel them sort of straining as I try and unzip them here, even just to demonstrate these little toggles they're going to break off. Just put them exposed, with little plastic covers over them to make all the difference. The seat itself, however, is quite comfortable. It's sculpted down the back, so you do sit quite nicely in it, in fairness. And there's a reasonable amount of padding underneath the thigh, and I don't feel that my feet are being pushed up as you do get in some cars. There is a centre tunnel, however, because the Junior is going to be available in 2025 with the 1.2 hybrid, the combustion engine car. So it is built on a platform that can take combustion engine as well. So you do have a centre transmission tunnel there. So 3 across is an absolute no-no as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, if there's an area where it really does disappoint, it's certainly back seat space. Right, the interior. I'm in two minds about this interior, and I feel a little bit let down by the company, if I'm being blunt about it. Let me just explain why. Because as far as... look, if you've watched some of the other videos on the Junior when it first came out, and I'm not knocking my colleagues, a lot of the videos are talking about, the lovely materials in Alcantara and stuff. There is, in some respects, as long as you pay a huge amount of money and go for the top of the range Veloce model, or you have a sport pack fitted, which again is a huge amount of money. If you just go for a standard speciality, this is what you've got. And this is where I'm slightly disappointed in some respects. So let me start off with the good stuff, the design of it. I love the design of it. Charlie and I sat in it at Goodwood, and we both sat there and went, this feels a bit special to sit inside. And it does. Yes, there are some commonality with switchgear, which you will see from other members of the Stellantis group. But rather than lifting sort of like the same dashboard from, say, the Fiat 600e or the Jeep Avenger and just sticking Alfa badges on it, they have designed their own interior, and in a lot of ways they've designed it quite well. From an aesthetics point of view, I think it looks great. I really do. Let me just start it up. So you put your finger, but you've got the engine start stop. I don't know why it says engine, but anyway, it's engine start stop there. So it's nice and prominent right in there. And it all, everything sort of fires into life. And you've got 2 screens effectively, so nothing too overwhelming, okay? Both 10.25 inch. There's the infotainment screen, so I'll just do that, Elliot, skip that. There's the infotainment screen, which is here, and then there's the driver information display, which is in here. Now let me start with this one, because I like this. I like the fact that I genuinely wasn't even sure it was the same size screen as that, because it's in this cowled binnacle. So they've done it like a traditional sort of Alfa dash, and their actual design of it is really good. It's very distinctive, and the font they use and sort of how clear it is, I can't fault. It's really clear. You look down through this this lovely little 3-spoke steering wheel, more of which in a second, to a very, very clear instrument panel that you've got here. So effectively what you have is 2 dials, a speedo on left, power meter on right, and then it's a centre infotainment, a centre information screen. And you can change that by pressing the button on the end of the stock. So depending on what you want to actually see will depend on what the information it actually gives you. So if you want navigation there, you can have navigation and the dials kind of shrink to the sides. If you want bigger dials, but you say you want to say like how much charge you've got in the battery, or there's the lane keep assist functionality there, or there's a trip meter function there. So it's not a huge amount you can have, but you can have just enough. It'll also allow you to have your media display there. So if you're playing Bluetooth music or your Apple CarPlay, it'll tell you what you've got and you're playing in the middle of the screen. And then you also get a digital speed readout at the top there. So I do like that. That's nice. And as I say, the way it's been designed, the graphics, the font they use is all very crisp, very clear, and it's really, really easy to read. The steering wheel is lovely. I really do like the steering wheel. It's just the right thickness. It's not too thick at all. It's just got a nice girth. Your thumbs fall neatly into this 8:45 position here. The steering wheel design itself is nice. I'd really like to maybe see them do a bit more style on this. Maybe like, I know Mazda have got that, that lovely, the MX-30, that lovely little 3-spoke that reminds me of the old kind of Japanese sports cars from the 70s. Maybe if Alfa had done something like that, almost, or even offered like maybe like a half wood rim or something like that, like maybe the old 70s Giulia Sprints or something. That'd have been quite funky and different. I know I'm talking about a modern Alfa should be modern and not rely on the past, and here's me saying, why don't they look at the past? But just something to maybe stand it apart would have been nice. As it is, however, it is a really nice steering wheel to have. There's just the right amount of physical controls on it as well. So your cruise control over on the left, your media controls, and your adjustment for, you know, like track search, volume and things like that comes on there as well. So that's quite nice. So as I say, I do like what they're able to do. What they have done with the steering wheel. The other thing that I really like as well is the face vents on the outer side. There's some nice ambient lighting in the car, and you get these lovely little sort of like four-spoke air vents with a little serpent in the middle again, and that glows red at night. So, you know, when you get lights on with ambient lighting, the little serpent glows red, and I really like that. That's lovely, really like it. And the column stalks are well positioned, and the controls are within easy reach. You've also got this 10.25 inch infotainment screen here, which, you know, again, is pretty much what we've seen across Stellantis, but obviously the graphics and things are changed for Alfa. So you got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You go in here to change all your driver assistance systems, as you do with most cars, you know, so for automatic braking, traction control, speed limit change, sound, that type of thing, and then just confirm you do it. And also when you touch it, you get this nice little click. Don't know if you can hear that, but you do get a nice little click when you hear it. So again, you know you've sort of activated it. It's relatively quick to respond. You know, some of the graphics aren't great. The little triangle that lights up if it's on or it's not. But I mean, it's okay. But it's a relatively quick thing to respond to sort of like everything that you do. And it's relatively easy to use. You've got a swipe down shortcut as well. And then you've got 4 buttons located above here. These are some of the buttons you get on, say, the Fiat 600 and the Jeep Avenger. So there's a home button which takes you straight back to the home screen here. And then when you're on the home screen, you've got 3 screens on that. So here you have your climate control, media, navigation, and then this more thing. And if you want a more detailed navigation screen, so you want to put your heated seats on, for instance, you have to come into this screen to do it. So that's a wee bit of a bind, but I think we're getting over the fact that we have to do a lot more in touchscreens on every car these days. So it's not the worst at all. And then, like these buttons here, you've then got this physical row of buttons down here, shortcut buttons. So volume, up and down your temperature, auto climate, defrosting for the windows, the climate menu, and then the fan speed outside there. My only gripe with those, there's 2 small things with it. They're not lit. Well, they have got lights on them, but they're difficult to get to at night. It'd be nice if they had some of the ambient lighting under this screen, so they're just highlighted a bit better. And also, if you're a taller driver, they are a bit of a stretch. I mean, I'm okay because I'm quite short, but if you were a taller driver, they are a little bit of a stretch because they are tucked underneath the screen. It's not the end of the world, and it's got physical buttons, so I'm not complaining too much, but you know what I'm saying, right? Right, there's a wireless charging pad here, but that is an option. Okay, and I'm going to go on to that in another wee second as well. Just come back here, you've got this is the bits where I'm starting to fall a little bit out of love with it. There's just a little bit too much switchgear from the Stellantis groups where it doesn't feel special enough. Okay, so you've got the toggle switch here, you know, so for the park, reverse, neutral and drive, and the brake regen button that's here. The drive mode, the electric park brake, that's all lifted from, you know, Corsa and 208, Peugeot and things like that. Now, if Alfa are trying to sort of like elevate themselves a little bit more into being a premium brand to sort of like compete with BMW, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, as they've said they have done in the past, that needs to be changed. Because, you know, whilst I don't mind its execution and sort of like the practicality of how it works, I just feel that, you know, some of it just doesn't, it feels a bit out of place. And that brings me on to my biggest problem with this interior, is the quality of it. I don't think the materials are good enough quality, and that's what I mean. If you look at some of those first view videos that the guys at Milan, they had a Veloce car with the Sabelt sports seats and the Alcantara and stuff. That's fine, but you got to pay a lot of money to get that car. This is the one you buy, the Speciale, the sort of like mid-ranking one. I think this is a really disappointing interior with its quality. Look at this. I know you don't spend your time, but why? That's just, it's hard, cheap plastic that moves, you know. And this on the top here as well, it's just this cheap feeling plastic. But then you get to this bit here, which is like a kind of neoprene wetsuit, which is down the side here and inside in the door bed, in the door cards, and that's fine. But then it moves again to then being the cheap plastic further down and above. Why have they done that? Now, I know you're going to say, well, it's cost cut, you know, they've got to share costs and da-da-da. DS Automobiles with the DS3, remember that car? That feels like a much more luxurious interior, and that spun off this platform. So why have Alfa not done it? Why have Alfa not spent more money putting better materials on the inside of this car? Because it feels cheap. I'm sorry, it does. I love the design of it, I really do. But unless you really spend money to get the Alcantara with the Veloce model and the Sport Pack and all the rest of it, it's just a bit, I don't know, I feel disappointed. I genuinely do. You know, again, going back, the KAV3, okay, a different style of car. The Volvo EX30, you know, B segment SUV. I know it's got the kind of minimalist interior, but their use of materials, you can't fault Volvo. Alfa need to be better than this. This needs to feel better in here. I can get round some of the switchgear being shared, but the materials just feel cheap to me. I'm sorry, it really disappoints. The other thing is, as well, you've got to spend extra to get certain things. Now, apologies, because I won't remember it. I have put it down in the iPad. This particular car has the technology pack. Right, so you could get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, but the technology pack gives you the electrochromatic rear view mirror, heated and folding door mirrors with blind spot detection, the wireless charging pad for your phone, the LED matrix headlights, all-round parking sensors. You know, that's an option. You know, wireless, and it's not a cheap car in the first place. Don't understand why that's an option. So, and again, that Sport Pack I was telling you about that other people had in their videos, that gives you the Saab belt seats, stunning seats by all accounts, really lovely seats, with the Alcantara trim that you get in the steering wheel and the seats and the dash and all the rest of it and that. But that's £2,200. If you put that option on this car, this particular car, the Speciale, not a Veloce, it puts this car over £40,000. I'm sorry, I feel really, this is the one part of the car where I've really felt let down by it, is the way the interior is built, just these cheap plastics. I just think that has no place in a car that somebody's going to stand there in a showroom and ask you to part with nearly £40,000 for. Anyway, there we go. Driving position, however, is actually really good. The only thing I will say about it is this. For some reason, I feel this is quite wide here, and as I've been driving it, I do feel that my knee just hits that separation where the hard plastic stops and that nice material starts. As I've been driving this week, I've been really noticing my knee resting against that. So make sure you do have a proper drive and a test drive in the car if you're looking at one, especially if you're a bit taller, just to see how you feel with that. There is a footrest down in there, so and you do sit sort of like straight on, and you don't have that old Italian problem of sort of like, you know, the gorilla driving position, in other words, short legs and long arms. You do find a really nice driving position with the car. The wheels adjustable for reach and rake, the seats adjustable for height, and I found a good driving position. The standard seats are actually really nice as well. You know, there's just enough support around them. They've got enough lateral support down the side of your thighs. There's just enough down the side of your back as well, and you do sit comfortable. I've got this high armrest here, which opens up and allows you to put, you know, polements and such like in there. You've also got this cubby down here with an adjustable thing. You can get one coffee cup in there, but there's a space in the door bins for a door bottle. The door bins as well are disappointing. They're that cheap feeling plastic, you know, again, which originally just feel a bit sharp as you put your hands down into them. So yeah, as I say, I love the design of it. I think the design of it's lovely. It really stands it apart. And I can get over sort of like some shared switchgear in some respects with the rest of the Stellantis group. But the cheap feeling materials around the rest, and again, lots of this piano black which I just wish stock manufacturers would stop using because it just gets fingerprinted and dusty. And I just feel really let down a little bit by it. As I say, you've got to spend quite a lot of money to get away from, and even then you still get this top area of the dashboard. Look, that just moves. That shouldn't be moving. You know, this area here, it shouldn't feel like this in an Alfa Romeo. There should be a higher quality sort of like cabin inside. You know, they've had it in the past. Why have they gone backwards with this car? And as I say, DS Automobiles, they're part of Stellantis. They use the same platform. The interior of the DS3 feels much more luxurious. They've got it right. So why doesn't this? Why hasn't Alfa spent more time invest? And also, there's no talk of sustainability. There's no talk of recycled plastics and materials. None of that. Even Fiat do that with a sequel material that they talk about. Alfa aren't. So I do feel let down by the interior. Brilliantly designed, badly built. Now all Juniors get the same battery capacity, which is 54 kilowatt hours. It's a usable capacity of around about 51 kilowatt hours. Now it should see a WLTP range of around about 250 miles in the most efficient model, the Electrica base model. This Speciale probably gets something quite similar in fairness, but if you plump for the high-powered Veloce model, which is it says the same battery level, that range drops to 215 miles. And I would suggest the way you would drive this car, you're looking at a sub 200 mile car there. This one, I think, in terms of its usable range, I would think you're probably more likely to see around about 220 miles in the real world, in fairness. Might be enough for you, might not. Right, so charging speed's quite low in fairness, 100 kilowatts maximum charging speed on the DC charge. However, because the battery is fairly small, the 10 to 80% benchmark charge from a charger that's capable of delivering that speed is going to be around about half an hour. So again, pretty much on par with everything else in the class. But if you're charging from your 7 kilowatt wall box from flat to full, it's around about 9 hours. All but the base Electrica gets onboard 11 kilowatt charging as standard, however, meaning that if you do have that faster three-phase electricity or you've got access to it, obviously you can bring that full speed charging speed, sorry, the time of that full charging speed down a little bit. Now I wouldn't blame you if you skipped over this part of the road test review, because there'll be an element of that you'll be thinking, how different can this be to everything else that's been trumped out under the Stellantis umbrella on this platform with this motor and setup. I wouldn't blame you if you did that, but please don't, because trust me when I say this, this is where the Junior stands apart from the others that use the same platform and the motor. This is a really fun little car to drive, but you've got to know what to do in some respects, so bear with me on this and we'll go through it. Right, so power figure, 154 horsepower, as we've seen before. Single motor, mounted up at the front, 54 kilowatt hour battery, blah, 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 blah. 0 to 60 in 9 seconds. Oh, hardly scintillating stuff, I hear you say. And you are correct. Obviously, if you want to go quicker, they do the Veloce model, which is 280 horsepower. And that slices the 0 to 60 time under 6 seconds. So if you want to go quick, that's the one that you need to have, okay? But even this one is worthwhile from a fun point of view. Now, the one thing you've got to do is sort of stay away from this drive mode button down here, because there's 3 driving modes. Alfa call it the DNA switch. They launched it when they launched the Mito, which I thought was quite a fun little sort of like thing to do. So the mode switch is called the DNA switch, even though on the Alfa here it says drive mode rather than DNA. It says DNA on the screen with drive mode here. And that's what I mean, they should make this bit more special, make it more Alfa. Anyway, when you're in the normal mode, the car's only giving you 109 of those Italian stallions, okay? And stay away from eco mode, because when you go down to eco mode, it draws, advanced efficiency, because it's dynamic, natural, and the A stands for advanced efficiency. It's then only giving you around 80 horsepower. And boy, does it feel like around 80 horsepower. You put your foot down and there's just a deadness to the controls. It's like you're pushing the accelerator and it feels like a sponge. So really, unless you're trying to eke out the very last bit of mileage to get to the charger, don't go anywhere near that mode as far as I'm concerned, because it kills what is actually quite a fun little car, okay? So if we go back into the natural mode, it's 109 horsepower that it delivers in this mode here. It's all right. It's pretty much performs as you'd expect it to do so. And round about town, that's all right. You know, you're driving in and out of Sainsbury's, you're dropping the kids off at school, you're going up to the station, the train, into work, or whatever you do in your day-to-day, you're going to be in this natural mode, and you're going to go, this feels all right. Doesn't feel particularly special, Bryan, but it feels all right, okay? Flick it up into dynamic. Do me a favour, just flick it into the dynamic mode, because all of a sudden everything sharpens up, and it actually makes the car feel a lot brisker than the raw figures would suggest that it does, okay? There's a nice sort of interaction with you as a driver in this little car that I really, really like. It's not just about raw numbers of 0 to 60 and stuff like that. It's how the car now feels, and it actually feels really sporty. It really does. The steering, what Alfa have done is they've quickened the rack up over the rest of the cars in the Stellantis group, and what it means is it's not fidgety. It doesn't feel, oh god, the minus, you know, sort of like movement is going to make the car feel out of order, out of thing on the road. But what it makes it feel is very responsive. This is a lovely little car in which to string a set of bends together. If this is what the standard one feels like, the Veloce must be an absolute riot to drive, because I really like the steering on this car. It just makes the whole thing feel a bit more fun. And that is what an Alfa should be. It should be fun to drive. You pitch it into a bend, you get a really nice weight on the steering just as it loads up in the corner, and you can feel it happening. But it's the immediate response you get from the wheel that I really like. There's no slack, there's no vagueness at the dead ahead. It just responds to you driving it. It's like you're asking it to do something. It goes, all right, yeah, let's do that. Let's turn in. Let's find that apex. You know, even when you are just manoeuvring around Sainsbury's car park, it makes it really light and really easy to do it. It's lovely. I really like it. And when you put your foot down, it has a briskness to the acceleration that, again, it just responds. You know, it feels quite mechanical in some respects, but what it does make the car feel, and I'm going to be really harping on about this, makes it feel quite light. It feels like quite a light little car. I think it's 1,540 kilos the car is, so it's not a big 2-ton heavyweight, and that is the appeal with this car. That's what I like about it. It feels quite fleet of foot. You know, you go into a set of bends and the car, you feel it's like it's not up on its tiptoes. But it's like a footballer going down the field, you know, sort of like avoiding every single player in the opposite team to make sure he gets the goal. That's what it's like. You can just feel it darting around as soon as you ask it to do something. And that is what makes this car feel really special, I think. I really do think. So stay away, or the first thing to do when you get into the car is flick it up into dynamic mode, and what you have is a really fun little car to drive. I promise you, it feels very different to the Mocha, to the 2008, to the 600e, to the Avenger. It doesn't feel like any of those other cars from the Stellantis group when you get it in that dynamic mode. And I think this is a real winner of a car when you get it in there. It drives really nicely, I promise you, it really does. Sorry, I'm just waiting on this van going through this width restriction. As I say, the steering, it's very direct, it's very light. I don't mean it to feel like it's over light. I drove the BYD Seal U DMI over on my House of Cars channel, and that has an overly light steering where it just, you know, you can turn the whole thing in your pinky. You can a little bit here, but you can also feel the weight of the steering as you pitch it into the bend or the roundabout or wherever you're going. So it is actually really responsive at low speed, so it's very manoeuvrable. So again, multi-storey car parks, the office car park, the school car park, wherever you're going, you will find the car is very manoeuvrable around those places, and that is superb. The ride quality. The ride quality on the 18-inch wheels is good. It's absolutely fine. Again, you can feel the road surface, you can hear what's happening underneath the car a little bit, but it's not jarring. It does isolate you from the really hard knocks. You get a really sort of like hard edge pothole or something you go through. Yes, you'll know it's there, but it's not going to send an absolute crash through the whole structure of the car. So I think they've got the ride well judged on the car. It's flat enough through the bends. There's not a huge amount of body roll when you go into the car. And again, that's going back to what I was saying. I want to stay away from calling it an SUV because it doesn't feel like that. It feels quite like the Mito in some respects. When I used to, I'd driven quite a few Mitos, and the small Super Mini that Alfa used to build. It doesn't feel a lot different to that car. So it's that Super Mini style of car. As I say, there's not a huge amount of lean in the corners. There's just enough, again, to give you feedback, but not enough that it's going to make you feel a little bit, car sick almost, where some cars do when they've got so much lean in them. So it's adding up to be a really good little car, isn't it? Then there's one downside, the brakes. The brakes just don't have the same level of feel and mechanical interaction that the rest of it does. We're back to these old Stellantis brakes, and I'm really disappointed with that. They just lack any kind of feel at all as a driver. You push on the pedal, nothing happens, and then all of a sudden it bites. It just doesn't give confidence in the car. You can't judge it well. If they had just got that bit right, it'd have been really hard to fault the drive of the car in terms of it being a sporty little car. But it's just the brakes I feel really let down by in that sense. Now, there's one level of brake regen as well. So again, the usual suspects down here, your switch gears, you've got your park, reverse, neutral, drive that you operate via the toggle switch. But then there's the B button. So if I press that, it does the one level brake regen. Now, Peugeot with the new STLA medium platform with the 3008 and 5008, and I think we're going to see it obviously as well on the Vauxhall version, the Grandland, which is coming out, and I'm going to be driving shortly. That has more adjustability on the brake regen. It would be really nice to see that on the smaller cars on this platform, because it might help alleviate you that brake pedal. You wouldn't have to use it as much. You could maybe use the paddles to slow the car down via the brake regen, rather than it's the transition, I think, between the motor regen and the physical brakes. It just doesn't transmit well through the pedal. It does feel like you're standing on a damp sponge, and I feel let down by that. And as I say, it'd be nice to see just a little bit more adaptability with the regen. There we go. Refinement. Well, this is a particularly pock-marked bit of road. This is my usual test route that I like to bring the cars down. There's a lot of expansion joints, there's a lot of harsh ridges down here. As I say, you can feel them, you can hear them coming through the car. What you don't get, however, is a lot of road noise. There's not a huge amount of road noise comes in from the car, or wind noise. So a refinement is exactly where I would expect it to be in terms of the size of car, the market space that it's in, judging it against its contemporaries. It is not as refined as the EV3 from Kia, nope, but it feels a little bit fleeter of foot than that car. That's the trade-off I'd be willing to give it, almost, to have that slightly sportier chassis that you get with the Alfa. The driving position, as I say, is not that old school Italianate driving position, the sort of like the short legs and the long arms. You do sit really nicely behind the wheel. I find myself sitting slightly further back in these cars. I'm, at the door pillar, which obviously means that, there's not a huge amount of room in the back of the car for those needing leg space, even with a shorty like me driving it. But what it does afford me is a really nice driving position, as I say. You've got a nice dead ahead position, the seats feel good, they feel comfortable enough. I really like this steering wheel, I really do. It's got a lovely nice thin rim round it. And as I say, because the steering is so sharp on the car and so feelsome, you get a lot of feedback transmitted through it, which I love as a driver. So that's really nice, and as I say, it's a really nice little wheel to hold. As much as I've complained about the materials of the car, as I say, I can't fault the design of it. So that screen has got that slight angle towards you as a driver. The only downside is the switches underneath here. They just need a little bit more, you need to lean a little bit more forward in the seat to get those. So as again, taller drivers might find that a little bit off-putting, but you won't need to touch them too much, hopefully. So in summary, what we have is a car that doesn't disappoint once you get it out onto the road. You've got to, you know, when you think that I know how it's going to drive because I've driven the Fiat 600e, I've driven the Jeep Avenger, I've driven the Peugeot. Trust me, they don't drive like the Alfa. The Alfa is by far the best one of them to drive. There is so much responsiveness from the chassis in this car. Alfa have done a great job with this. It's way better than they did with the Mito. Way better they did with that. It's way better than they've done with the Giulietta. I'd say it's one of their best cars in terms of the chassis. Let me pitch it into this bend here. It just digs in. And you're only going, you know, 30 odd miles an hour. It's a really fun little car. They've made something really fun to drive. I can't wait to drive the Veloce with the 280 horsepower motor. If it drives as good as this and is quicker, it will be an absolute scream. But as it is, this is a really good Alfa. No, actually, scrub that. This is a brilliant Alfa. Okay, pricing wise, well, again, it's quite hard to defend Alfa a little bit here because this is not an inexpensive car, okay? None of these Stellantis group cars are, in fairness. And as I say, we're starting to see a lot of competition in this market space. It's a huge amount of cars playing for your money at this level, which I'll go on to talk about in the next section. But anyway, prices. So there's 3 models in the range. You start with the base model, the Electrica, which is 33,895. Okay, and that gets you your 54 kilowatt battery, the 250 mile range, but it's not that well equipped. You move up to the Speciale, which is the one that I have here. Same powertrain, same battery size, but that basically climbs to 35,695. However, as tested, this car is actually 38,245 because it has the optional Brera Red metallic paint and the technology pack. Remember, I spoke about that earlier, which means that if you then add that sport pack to get the nicer trim on the inside, it pushes this car over the £40,000 bracket, which obviously makes it applicable for that higher level of vehicle excise duty. Like I say, it's not cheap. We spoke about the Veloce model there, so if you want the 280 horsepower Veloce, the all singing all dancing one, same battery, remember, just much more powerful motor, 42,295. They were paying for that car, which means obviously with some options in that car, it's closer obviously to the £45,000, which for a car that won't achieve 200 miles in the real world is a lot of money, I think. Right, when it comes to the competition for the car, well, we could be here all day because at this price point, at this section of the market, like I said, it's hugely popular and it's quite a crowded market space. Now, to be fair to Stellantis and the brands that it represents, I think each brand is trying to see itself as appealing to a different style of customer. So whilst you could sort of like say, well, they're all just the same, in some respects they are, but in other respects, I don't think they are. They're maybe not appealing to the same type of customer. So the Fiat 600e, for instance, I think Fiat are sort of like seeing that more of a sort of like chic type of urban style runaround, you know, sort of like for younger families. Whereas Jeep with the Avenger, you know, same type of same platform, same battery and such like, they see that much more appealing to sort of the outdoorsy type. Vauxhall and Peugeot with the Mocha and the E2008 respectively maybe are sort of aiming more at the sort of mainstream, and DS with the DS3 see that much more as a sort of like a luxury style of car. The one brand that's maybe got that slight confliction with the Alfa is Abarth, which is obviously part of Stellantis as well, with its version of the 600e, very much the performance orientated car. So the Veloce model of the Junior is going to be very much right up against the Abarth 600e. So there's certainly sort of like in-family fighting with those two cars. But as I say, you know, I do think they will appeal across different type of customers, but there's no doubt about it. I think you will judge the car against those other cars from the brands from within Stellantis Group. The other week I drove the Kia EV3. Now that's a car that a lot of people say, oh, it's not really a B-segment SUV. That's the market space that Kia is aiming for. You know, and it offers a lot more space, a lot more range, a significant amount more range, and a lot more interior space on the interior, obviously, than the Alfa does at a similar level. And of course, it gives a much better warranty. It's a 7-year warranty. Is a Kia customer really going to consider an Alfa Romeo? Maybe not, but there's no doubt about it. When you look at the prices, they are something too. You know, they're two cars that no doubt you're going to look at, as is maybe something like the Hyundai Kona as well. So there we go. I just mentioned that. There are 3 cars that I consider, however, to be real quite close rivals to this. One of which is the Volvo EX30, and obviously its compatriot from Smart, because within the Geely group, then obviously it shares commonality like Stellantis cars do, the Smart #1. Same style of cars, similar type of range, a little bit more performance, similar type of price. So I think that, you know, and premium products, premium badges. So I think they're 2 cars you're also going to consider. The third car is a car that I'm actually driving tomorrow that I think will be quite a close competitor for that, and that's the new Mini Aceman, the sort of like the middle Mini, if you like, between this little hatch Cooper and the Countryman SUV, is their sort of like 5-door crossover. Very, very similar style of battery, very similar ranges, very similar prices. Again, mini badge, synonymous with maybe more fun kind of handling and so forth, and, you know, performance, much like Alfa Romeo is. So that's the 3 cars I see as being the main competitors for the Junior: the EX30, the #1, and the new Aceman. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new Alfa Romeo Junior. What we like: its styling, both inside and out. It offers a comfortable driving position. It's fun to drive. And there's the option of the performance-orientated Veloce model. We don't like the interior. Well, whilst it's nicely designed, it's let down by the inferior quality of materials. Its range, efficiency, battery and electrical architecture is only average for class. Price gets high with options. And the brakes lack feel. I'm really quite conflicted with this car, because on the one hand, I should be really hard on it for giving us what is just an average EV experience. And it's an average EV experience in a marketplace that is crammed with talent, many of which do it a lot better for a lot less money than this little Alfa. And it's a weird little car because almost it does the opposite of what Alfas have done in the past. Remember what I was saying earlier? They lure you in with their showroom appeal, only for them then to really let you down later on. Whereas this car, I think, does the absolute opposite of that. You sit in it and it doesn't feel that special. Some of the materials just don't really add up. But when you get it out on the road, it turns out to be a really fun little car to drive. So let me leave it like this. It's not the best car in its class, far from it. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as something like, say, the Volvo EX30 or the Kia EV3. But what I do think it is the best car that sits on this platform from within the Stellantis group, which means that in my book, it is the best Alfa Romeo that we've had in a very, very long time. And for that reason alone, it deserves to succeed. Thank you for watching yet another new car review on AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. And once you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's review, and I hope you have, then please make sure that you give it a little thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the Alfa Romeo Junior. Have you got one of these on order? Have you bought one? Have you been tempted by it only to feel let down by it when you sat in it? Did you buy something else instead? Have you bought one of these over, say, a Kia EV3 or a Volvo EX30? What tempted you into it? Are you a lifelong Alfisti and you can't stand the thought of the company going all electric? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now remember, we're also across on social media platforms as well. So Facebook, X, LinkedIn, TikTok, the gram, we're on Instagram, so give us a follow there as well, because that certainly helps the channel. And maybe you're in the marketplace for an electric car. Might be a new one, it might be a used one, doesn't matter. And you need to know all there is to know about the car before you go into the showroom. How are you going to find it out? Well, let me tell you how you do that. You stay on the AutoEV YouTube channel, and just at the top there's a little magnifying glass. If you type the name of the car that you're interested in there, if it's been a new electric car that's been launched in the UK in the last 5 years or so, we'll have subjected it to the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that is the AutoEV one. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. See you again soon.